Okay. All right, folks. Let's get a few things out of the way. Oh, goodness, a lot happening here. There we go. All right, so got Windows Windows going on up in here. All right. There we go. Now that's still not it. Where is our class? New. Okay. All right. Well, guys, welcome to week 12. We've got two goals here this afternoon. One is to talk about the next portion of the project, in which we will be starting to code the wireframes for our homepage and our subpages. And I'll talk a bit about that. Depending on how much time we have after our critique, I may end up doing like a live coding demo for you guys, but I want to point you to a resource that I have here that should be very valuable for helping you guys complete this next step of the project. Last night I put together a 47-minute long video walking through the creation of various layouts using Flexbox. The link to that is right here in the week 12 area. So what I do, I guess let me kind of explain real quick what I'm doing in this video. I begin by just talking about how to actually use Flexbox. And I know that, we talked briefly about Flexbox in the past. Flexbox is really just, it's a fancy name, but it's really just a few lines of CSS code. It's a very, very friendly language to code in for designers, like extremely easy to use. So don't necessarily let the name Flexbox or intimidate you, or even be worried about implementing new code. It's super, super easy and just easy to adopt. So what I do in this tutorial, or this walkthrough really, is I code in Visual Studio. I code, first of all, a basic example where I make a div container, and inside of that div container, I place 3 other divs. And I talk about how they align by default and how to modify that using Flexbox. And I just use a couple of lines of code to do that. After I do that, I then go into our Google Drive and I looked at 8 of the wireframes that you guys submitted. So I'm literally using the same wireframes that you guys submitted. And I found some of the more common layouts that I found across most of your layouts. And then I found a couple of the odd ones that were just sort of one-offs, but I basically walk through how to code those using Flexbox. So different types of columns. I do a 3-column, a 2-column, 2-column with varying widths. I talk about how to do the alternating 2 columns where the widths are alternating, so images pop across. Thank you, across different sides of the layouts. I talk about doing 3 columns for the big middle ones, 2 small side ones. I run through a whole gamut of different things. I do go through it fairly fast because there was a lot to cover and I didn't want to make like a really long video. So my recommendation is, as you're watching that, just be willing to pause so you can see my code, because I'm just kind of typing and talking and moving. But you can obviously watch that as many times as you need to. But I think that that'll be a really valuable resource for you guys. But I'm hoping, we'll see. Last class, we actually got through our critiques really quick and we had time at the end. If we have some time, I'll at least do a live introduction to working with Flexbox, just again, so you guys can kind of see how that ends up working. But our main goal while we're together is to take a look at the revised homepage concepts as well as the subpage designs. Few of you were pretty active this week in terms of getting feedback from me on those. So those won't necessarily take a long time to critique. But as always, you've heard me say it a bunch of times. I know there's a lot of us in this class, so the critiques will be fast and furious. Typically, though, this isn't too bad of a critique to get through, though, because we've already looked at the home pages, and you guys have got a chance now to revise those. They were actually looking awesome last class anyway. So I suspect here that really we'll be spending the bulk of our time looking at the subpage designs. Let me see. Let me get to our folder, and then we'll make this happen. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, there's this should be very doable for us to get through the submissions that are here right now. As always, I'm just going to kind of go in the order in which these have been submitted here. So Kyle, we'll begin here with yours. Let's see. Cool. I'm going to actually start with your revised homepage. Okay. Cool. Let's see here. Kyle, on your homepage, a couple of just very small suggestions for you. I would maybe consider, I would shrink the size of this logo down a bit. You get really, really close to the left-hand side of the page. I think you, and it's big, bold text. I think you could easily shrink this down by probably a good 50 to 100 pixels, and it'll still be very, very legible. There is one thing though that I'm curious about. I'm going to just open this really quick in Photoshop. I just want to try something. I want to try a white background in two different areas. I want to kind of see how it feels. Shoot, I think I logged out of Photoshop though earlier in my earlier class, but I'm going to try this. No idea what's happening here. Okay. Wow. All right, I'll tell you what, you open up Photoshop and it starts doing stuff like that. It is time to quit. What I'm curious about, Kyle, what I'm going to try is using a white background either in the top logo area or in the bottom body area. I feel like with everything having such a really rich blue background, that it ends up being a little bit overwhelming. I feel like one of those two elements, if we change to white, it will really open things up. Now, without having your layers, I'm going to kind of have to hack this to make this happen. So bear with me. This is not at all the way I would normally do this. But it shouldn't take too long. I just have to find my layers. I don't know why my Photoshop is acting so wacky. I was just using it in class on campus earlier today without any issue. There we go. All right. So, actually I do have your layers. Oh my goodness. Awesome. Okay. So here's what we're going to try real quick. I want to see what this will look like either if the top area is white, and I will tell you right off the bat, I don't like that. I want to see what this will look like then with the main area being white. Now, if this ends up working, obviously we're going to want to go with black text in there. Or even, the dark blue text could work out really, really well for us. My other suggestion for you would be taking these buttons, which I like very much, but I would enlarge them. I would probably go just bigger with them, smaller buttons like that. They feel kind of dated. Ever since we've been dealing with mobile technology, small buttons like that on a phone look really small. Much bigger ones are just easier to touch. And because of that, because of moving buttons into a much larger realm, these types of buttons just immediately remind me of the web from like 10 or 15 years ago. And larger buttons like this, to me at least, feel much more modern. So, I mean, that would be, obviously we've got some small alignment things here, but for me, I really feel like a white background here picks up so well on the text in your hero banner, as well as the white now around your logo really pops so nicely. I would strongly recommend going with a white background. Okay. Again, I thought it was a really bold color choice. And last week, I know I had said that I think this can work, but I do feel like that this is just stronger overall. Okay, so do consider that. I would likely say the same thing if you're doing that on your sub pages as well. But aside from just changing that background color and changing the width of your buttons, I really believe that this website, the homepage, is very strong and will work well for you. It'll be an easy thing to actually code as well, which is, you know, always nice. Let's take a look at some of these sub pages. Cool, nice, clean, simple. Again, I feel like larger buttons on these, I think, would be a nice touch. Let's see, Kyle, are these just going to be buttons where we can click and it'll take us to like the website potentially of these different locations?
Yes, that's what I was intending.
Perfect, perfect. I will show you guys, I don't remember if we did this for the first project or not. Did I show you guys how to add to your links a target of blank _ blank? It will what that ultimately does is when you click on a link, it will open up in a whole brand new window so that your website is still there in its own tab. But I'll show you guys how to do that for this type of a scenario. Cool. Again, potentially working with a white background in the main content area would again be a suggestion for you. But and again, making those buttons large. But that's it. That might actually be the ultimately the only thing here, because I'm guessing that these pages will be very consistent in terms of how they look. Do consider also, Kyle, for these the previous page as well as the page I was just on, I feel like it would be helpful if at the beginning of these paragraphs, if we had like the name of the activity treated like a header, not this large, but maybe about half the size, same font, you know, same color, same weight, but about half the size. I do feel like that would add a really nice strong anchor, visual anchor to begin each of these with. But again, that'll literally take you a few moments to do. This is very nicely developed. Yeah, I feel like with, you know, a single sit down, Kyle, of just adding those or making those few tweaks, adding those text headers, you are absolutely ready to move on to beginning coding your wireframe. Really nice work there.
All right.
Let's see. Now, Jen, we looked at yours in the earlier class, but I think it's probably worth looking at these again. I didn't look at them like zoomed in all the way on your computer when you were showing them to me, but as we talked about earlier, I thought they looked wonderful, and I'd like for everybody to have an opportunity to see these as well.
Thanks. I didn't send the second version. I just sent you the one that had the 3.
Oh my goodness, not acceptable, Jen.
Okay, what do you want to do? Oh, I thought you meant. Okay, never mind.
No, I am teasing you.
Okay. Don't tease me, not yet.
Yeah, all right. Let's see here. So I know that you guys got an opportunity to take a look at the homepage last time. But again, definitely worth looking at here again. Let me get that window to go away. Cool. So you definitely made the adjustments that we talked about inside of the icons. Cool. I like the opposite alignment happening on these, going from like left aligned to right aligned. Again, some really nice eye flow that's happening as we kind of like the eye bounces from these. Another thing I mentioned to you, but I want to talk about with the class. I really like the technique that Jen is using here in terms of alternating the background colors to create a really strong, not only visual hierarchy, but to just kind of what am I trying to say? Basically, I can't even come up with the word. It's creating these compartments. That's what I was trying to say, was compartmentalize these different areas of the website. But there's some high contrast in these areas, from this really rich blue to this sort of like really pastel green, then moving back into like this much deeper, richer green. And I love that. This, I think, is an excellent use of background color, especially in areas where we have smaller copy. Jen kind of eases off on it a little bit and uses this much softer color. But strong typographical hierarchy really reinforces the color hierarchy that's being established here. So, you know, looking at this at full size, I don't have suggestions for you. I think this page here is very much ready to go. Let's see here, food and beverage. Let me look at this a little bit larger, because at this really small size, that type looks a little bit on the small side, but at 100%, I'm guessing it will probably be good. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if I'm gonna leave that in the picture. I don't know.
No, at 100%, it reads fine. I feel like if you do include that on really any of your pictures, my recommendation would be on the bottom of these images, add a gradient that goes from, like, let's say black to transparent, and then maybe turn that gradient down by about maybe 70–80% opacity. And the way that we would do something like that, I'll just do it like on this image. I would do that with a layer effect. I would use the, where is it here? The gradient overlay right there.
Okay.
So modifying that gradient so that we've got a stop that is black. Actually, really, we'd want both of the stops to be black. But then we would, the stops above that are opacity. So if I click on this, I can go ahead and lower the opacity down to 0, and then I can crunch these a little bit. Like, I don't necessarily need the, hang on a second, I'm gonna do that. Actually, that's not the one I'm worried about, this guy here. So I can make that, really kind of come down to the bottom. What's happening here is this gradient bar represents the height of this image. And what I'm doing by dragging over this opacity bar is I'm telling it to only apply, to like the bottom half or so of the, or third of the image. And so you'll be able to lay text on top of that much easier without any interference from the image itself. And the cool thing about this is you can actually, it doesn't have to be black. I recommended black because there was those really rich, deep silhouettes in that image. But we could totally modify this based on the image. Maybe in this one, instead of, if I were recommending that on this image, instead of like the black, maybe pulling from like these, these blues or something, maybe a little bit darker than that. I don't know. But yeah, so I think that if you did end up keeping those, that would be a wonderful way to create that that extra separation. In this case, for the most part, I really can read that, but I think that not every image is, of course, going to have that nice dark bottom. So you can artificially add that with a gradient that just fades to nothing.
Okay, thanks.
Cool, good. You probably know this, but just again to kind of reiterate, maybe for everybody else, what I'm liking about this as well, the images are all cropped to be the same size, which is just a nice, clean, professional way of working. Something that happens in a lot of beginning web classes is students will find images and they won't necessarily bother to resize them or to crop them to be similar to each other. And to me, when I'm seeing images of varying sizes that are sharing the same area, it just comes off as a very sort of amateur look. This is really nice. I may reference this look later because, again, it's just a common thing. So at least you guys are seeing an example of this now that I can refer to later as we're looking at subpages. But this is nice. If you are dealing with subpage images that are different sizes from each other, strongly consider cropping them down in Photoshop to work with similar sizes. Jen, depending on the size of the original images, perhaps these circles could be a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Especially because they're featuring food and drink. Those generally tend to be more attractive when they're larger. Now, these, I think, I'm going to kind of go against what I just said with these. Leave these at this size because they're balanced rather nicely there. Like, and I guess probably at 100%, they're not like crazy small by any means. Of course, I say that now I zoomed in and they're all gone at this size, but there we go. Yeah, I don't know what the heck the deal is here when I go up to 100%, why the images are disappearing. Weird. Oh, there they are. All right. Yeah, I mean, at 100%, these are not bad, but I do believe that you have enough room up here where you could go larger with these. Be careful about like something like that right there.
I saw that. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, and some of my text in the ones above the square, there it's not even. It's not. I got to go back and make sure everything is exactly how I want it and all even. You know what I mean?
Yep. And that'll be easy. I wouldn't actually, don't worry about doing that in these documents.
Right.
It'll be much easier to do when you're styling them, because if you're just recycling those styles, of course, you know, the margins, the padding, that will all be consistent then. It's just easier to do there.
Right.
Yeah, again, nice large images here. Cool. Maybe on the text areas like this, I thought about this above, but I think seeing it again really kind of confirms it to me. I would probably only go with this really like bold text on just the first sentence, and then for the remaining sentences go, you know, just regular.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I wouldn't have never thought that. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Thanks.
because otherwise it's a very heavy block of type.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, again, nice large images here. I'm glad that you broke the fear of using full-size images in your websites. That just looks good, you know, not only here in the browser on the desktop, but this would look awesome on the phone as well with those images scaled across. Good, nice size buttons on here.
Okay, I did
yeah.
have a question, and I thought there's 3 different fonts on this page because I wasn't sure which one to go with. What
Okay.
as far as in the paragraphs.
Okay. Let's see. The font itself, I don't mind here, but I will say that the letter spacing, your kerning in between each of the letters is a little bit too loose. So I would tighten that up a bit if you went with that one. I prefer this compared to the last one we just saw.
Me too.
And I actually, yeah, this is my favorite right here.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's cool. I'm glad that you tried 3 different ones so we can have a conversation about it. As you know, I'm a really visual person. I have to see the stuff to be able to really compare. I don't mind this one, but I think it's a little on the heavy side. To me, there's a really nice balance here. It's clean, it's readable. Yeah, this is my favorite.
Yeah, the last one, actually I just threw it in really quick because I used to have the troll stuff there and I switched that for that other page.
Yep.
So I mean, there's the English, just the grammar there is all wrong too. So
okay.
Don't look too far.
So this is one I immediately identify with this font. Like you got me for the classes. You know this already. Like I love Montserrat. I love this font. I use it all the time. I'm not the biggest fan of it though for body copy. I mean, I love it for like these buttons. I think it looks awesome on these buttons. Super clean, really, really modern. But in paragraph form, there's just something about it for me that's a little bit off. Versus, and again, I think the middle one is better, but I think this is absolutely the best of them. Which one is this here? Is it just?
I don't know right now.
might be Helvetica. I'm not sure. But yeah, that would be the one I would use.
I think the bold is not good either for the paragraph.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Bold on. Okay.
I do feel like though for the headers, because I can tell you use different fonts in the headers as well.
Yeah, I did.
I do prefer, and again, this is just me. I prefer Montserrat. I think it's a beautiful modern font. It looks really nice on websites. There's nothing wrong though with like this or this. I don't, again, it's just my bias on this. I'm going to pick that font almost every time when it comes to just a clean sans serif type face for a header.
Yeah, and I want to, maybe I'll just change it from either bold or regular, but I do want the headers to kind of be all the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Font, yes. Yeah, this one I should have zoomed in a little bit closer to now that I'm seeing quite a few mistakes.
So. Yeah, no worries. That stuff you can definitely clean up.
But I will wait until I code it to change it.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Nice work, Jen. I wouldn't make really any of those changes that we just discussed in this document. It's developed well enough that you can definitely move forward with starting to code the wireframes, and then we can make those small tweaks then.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let's see here. Next up, Nick, I believe this is yours. Let's give this a look. All right, awesome. I'm so happy to see that you ended up adding that footer like we talked about. Didn't necessarily go with full black, and that's okay. I do believe that adding the gray is a nice touch. I think you've done a much better job of ending the site compared to where it was last week. This is a rich enough gray that you might be able to, when you're working with type this large, you may actually just be able to go with white type in there. Something to consider. Another thing I would recommend, this is like a 2-second change, Nick. I would take the black stroke off of the header box. Definitely use it on the buttons. But the issue here, what we want to do, this is not a class that we've talked a lot about usability of a website. So this is maybe not an issue that you guys are familiar with. But basic usability principles are such that, like, when we have an interactive element and we style it a certain way, like meaning you've got this button with a with this font and it's gray and it's got a black border, we would want to treat any other buttons or clickable things that way. And we're treating this the exact same way, which could come off as misleading. Now, don't get me wrong, I can tell this is not a big giant button, but again, we don't want to have people make decisions or have to figure that out. We want them to just act and not have to think, is this a button? Is it not a button? I think just simply taking the stroke off of it is enough to potentially differentiate it. Or again, it could potentially have white type in there as well. That would be another thing you could do. Let's see. So yeah, I would do same thing here. I would not put these in those same boxes as our buttons maybe are. Or I guess, Nick, let me ask you a question, because I might be misreading this. These come off as looking like buttons to me. Was that the intention? Are these clickable, or are these just text headers? Let me see if Nick is here with us. I might be talking to nobody. Let's see. Yep, no Nick. Okay, so Nick, obviously you watched the video last week and made those changes. Something you want to think about is, are these buttons or not? They look like buttons. They probably should be buttons. But with that being said, we don't then want to style text headers like this with that same look and feel as buttons. I think just taking them out of the gray box altogether, remove the black stroke, the gray background, you're good to go. Those will act as nice, strong headers for you. Same thing here again with shopping. Really, you want to treat that shopping and restaurants, again, eliminate that. You could probably even go full width on the box on those. It just sort of reinforces that horizontal that you're repeating over and over again on these. Yeah, same issues on the other sub pages, but it's quick, easy fixes. I think, Nick, if you revisit these documents, it won't take you very long at all to make those tweaks. Just do it on one page. Make sure you like it. You don't need to tweak the other pages. That's something, again, that we can do once you actually start to code this, because the style that you'll build for one of these text headers will be applied to all of the others. It'll be much easier and quicker and a better use of your time and energy to do it while you're coding. But again, good to see that you implemented those tweaks that I had suggested. Jose, let me download this and unzip it real quick. In fact, while I'm here, maybe doing this and doing downloading, I'm going to go ahead and grab Catherine's as well. And that way I can go ahead and do both of these. Tight. I don't want them all in separate windows here. I'm just going to go ahead and open these all up in one. So Jose, I remember at the end of last class, you had actually already had time to implement those tweaks that we talked about. I absolutely adore the homepage now with those. I thought it was really strong actually last time. We had some color things to address. You addressed them directly inside of class. And I think they look great. So it's a wonderful combination of where both of those were. I'm not quite sure why my preview is acting this way though. Doing this earlier and kind of acting up and taking a while to show things. Yeah, weird. All right, well, we'll just do this. Oh, there we go. Let's see. We'll do it like this, I suppose. Or not. shoot, yeah, doing a preview this way does not allow me to zoom out. It's one more time. Okay, cool. All right, third time was the charm. Okay, so as we discussed last week, I really like this color combination. We've got a strong typographical hierarchy. I think if I could offer you any suggestion at all here at this point, I would probably make these buttons a little wider for the reasons that we talked about earlier, but also not only will it be a little bit more functional on a phone, but I do feel like it will also help in terms of like this text is really crammed right here. So I think that if you were to add a good, probably 50 pixels on each side of these buttons, that would be a nice touch.
Okay.
Let's go through subpages. Again, not really nice use of this area for like kind of kicking off a basic description of the page. Something to think about when we code. I do feel like the space here is a little tight. Don't worry about again changing it now, but probably the amount of space you have here, I would double it between the header and the content. And then I would double this space as well between this row of information and then this row of information.
Okay.
Just to open up a little bit. Again, much easier to do in code than when you're in Photoshop and you're dealing with like fixed size.
Yeah.
Oh, nice form here. Very nice. Cool. Maybe consider, and again, we'll try this when we code, maybe consider white backgrounds in these forms. I don't mind this with this color, but I do feel like since you've got like some really nice strong white in your type up here, it might help just sort of make it all pop. Okay? So consider that very easy tweak to make in the style. And with one line of code, we can see all of those in white or in this current color, and you can make a determination. Jose, what are coal rooms?
That's a restaurant.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Again, really like the images that you've chosen for your hero banners. This is just a really professional looking site overall. Jose, really nice.
Thank you.
Maybe consider up here going with a single column for the type. Now, this is very contradictory to almost anytime I see type. I generally like two columns. I feel like though, I feel like we're limiting the amount of words per sentence. By the time we get down to like only having like 4 words per sentence, I almost feel like the columns are impeding on the functionality rather than like, I think that aesthetically columns are always more pleasing to look at, but I feel like when the aesthetics are compromising the functionality, I think it's probably best to just go with a single paragraph
Okay.
there, or a single column. It might be multiple paragraphs.
Yeah.
If you're only dealing with a short blurb, you
Yeah.
can probably get away with it like this. Okay, like this is absolutely fine because you're probably a sentence about each, right? But when we
Yeah.
have a whole paragraph, let's go to a single column. Well done, sir. I think again, those changes that I suggested, I wouldn't even worry about implementing them here. Just keep them in your mind for when we are actually coding this site.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you.
Let's see. I also had downloaded Catherine's. So let's take a look at that here. Okay. Catherine, I like what you've done up here in the header logo area and navigation. This will be a fun one for us to learn how to code. I will do a demo for you guys where I'll show you how, if you wanted to overlap links on top of a hero banner and even do like the classic semi-opaque background there, we can do that. This area I think is set. I've got one minor suggestion that I think is going to go a long way on the bottom part here. I would recommend that you remove the text from laying on top of the image and rather put that right above the text over on this side. I feel like it is, well, let me look at this as 100%, because I may be making that judgment call on a much smaller scale, because my initial thought was it's just hard to read. But zooming in on this, actually, I think you've done a nice job with this. I think you can actually leave this the way that it is. You've done a nice job of overlaying that semi-opaque shape on the bottom of these. Yeah, you know what? Let's leave it. I take that back. Very nice. It's got a nice, like, very elegant but classic feel to it with the colors and the typefaces that you've chosen. Let's see here. So here on your form page, yeah, we can totally do rounded rectangles for form elements. And I will show you guys, I'll do a demo for you. The very last demo that I do in this class is how to code these forms. And by default, they do not contain text, but it's very easy to add text to them. And I do like this, like actually, instead of having like a label above or next to it, actually having it in the form, I just find it's clean and just it's functional. Okay. Okay, so on these pages, again, using that same look on these ovals, I think will work. I do feel like though that the side, like the text on all the sides of these, has got some issues that we should talk about. So this ends up really crammed, Catherine, like where the paragraph text is basically like almost on the edge, and it's touching here. It's way too crammed. It feels like an afterthought. I would recommend adding a little bit more padding inside that paragraph. And this type of a trick is something that's very easy to do in print. Like when we're dealing in InDesign, there's a number of ways to set up word wrap. That's not an option for the web. Word wrap is just not a thing. And what we would have to do is put hard returns in there, which is also not a good idea because that will not set us up for making a mobile site. So even though this is not going to be a responsive mobile site, I don't want to teach you in this class how to set that up, because it would when you move to your Web 2 class, it's not going to be an option. Yeah, ultimately on these, let's just get some extra room here on the sides. I just feel like that is super, super tight and cramped. Easy enough though to fix. Okay, here, I think you've got a decent amount of room here. That's feeling a little bit more comfortable to me. Again, this gets a little bit tight right here. But fortunately, you've got enough room. I mean, there's plenty of room to make these, the containers in this row, this column, making it just a little bit less wide. Again, I've mentioned this to a bunch of folks so far. Don't worry about fixing that here. We'll do it in the code. We'll set up a style. It'll happen to all of those little blocks of text then right away. Okay. Yeah, I think ultimately same thing, just a little bit cramped there. We can probably remove either the A here or the S. Wine experience would be fine. Wine experiences or a wine experience, but I actually think experiences is probably the way to go. So just remove the A, just a wine experience rather than a wine experiences. Okay. Like ultimately like this has just got a lot more room around it. This is kind of where I'd like to see this go. Maybe not quite as much space on these down here, but this just sits much, much more naturally. I think we also want to make sure, and again, this will happen in the style, want to make sure that the font is all the same size. You know, I'm noticing on quite a few of these how some of the lines of type are a little bit smaller compared to the others, but it's not a dramatic difference. So it comes off as a mistake. Cool, good amount of space there, that works. Okay, cool. Yeah, top two on this page look good. Again, some more space on that one down there. All right, cool. We've got a little email sign up in the footer there. I would be careful about these social media icons in your footers. It does look like they were all smashed. Like the Instagram logo is actually that looks like, well, I mean, all of them are definitely smashed, but that's the clear giveaway because that is normally a rounded square. And here it's clearly a smashed rectangle. So just be careful about that. We don't want that to happen on the icon or for any image for that matter. Okay. All right, Catherine, very nice. Some small things to think about as you move forward into the coding phase. But these designs will, I think, serve you very well.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see, Jacob, let's give yours a look here. Okay, so this was for the,
I actually wasn't sure what exactly we were supposed to do for homework this week. I knew I needed to edit my homepage, but I didn't know we had to do the other sub pages as well.
okay, so Jacob, if you're ever unsure about what needs to happen on a given week, just reach out to me. Okay.
Yeah, I think I sent an email yesterday, but it might have been too late.
Gotcha. Yeah, I checked today. I was actually not on campus yesterday. I checked today. I did not see one from you, but yeah, just
Okay, might
reach
not
out.
have gone through.
But yeah, I think the changes that needed to happen to this, you definitely implemented. I like the bookending of the background color on the top and bottom. What you'll want to do is touch base with me sooner than later this week or beginning of next week to get those subpages designed and knocked out, because that's going to affect the next portion of this assignment with you having to build the like the coded wireframes for these things. Okay.
Okay.
Homepage though, you implemented what I asked you to. No suggestions at all there, but yeah, definitely get cranking on subpage designs so that you don't fall behind on the next portion of the project. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chaz, your homepage was looking really good last week. Let's see how things are looking today. All is looking good there. Cool. Okay. All right, let's see how the subpages turned out. Okay, cool. I like the variation in the type. That sort of like little specifications or asides there at the bottom. That might have to be a little bit stronger though. I feel like that is probably
it's actually stronger on when I'm looking at it on the screen. I think when I converted it to a PDF, because I outlined the type and then converted it, I think that it got for some reason lighter.
Yeah,
it doesn't look
it
like
looks like it's extra light, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, not by any means a deal breaker, but be aware of that when you move into the actually styling that.
Yeah, it's actually the same darkness as above it. It's just italic. So
okay, interesting.
Weird.
What font is that? Is that Monstrat?
It is. It's Monstrat regular and Monstrat italic.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, I think if you go Monstrat regular here, you can probably go with like there's a couple of versions below regular that you can go to. I think there's a light and an extra light. Like light can probably work, like light italics. We can kind of take a look at it obviously when you code it and see. I do like that there is a difference between those, but at least in this design here, the way that it exported I think it's too light, but the page looks good. Let's see here. So I'm going out of your file. Let me go back in there. I'm going to start to zoom out a little bit on these. All right, cool. So one thing to think about with this, Jazz, is from a technical standpoint, an issue that will arise that we can discuss how to handle. The faded outline on these images is not normally a problem, but on all of your pages, you have these background like shapes. Those background shapes are going to be added as background images to your wrapper. Because of that, and the way that the faded images overlap those, we have to save all of these images out as pings with transparency. And I will tell you that high color photographic pings with transparency, their file sizes get large. So this would not be an issue. There's two ways to fix this. Number one, it would not be an issue if these images did not overlap a background, because we could cheat and cut out a part of this sort of like light pastel yellow as part of the image. And technically there would be no transparency. Okay. But I don't necessarily want you to eliminate this background pattern. I like it. The alternate option would be that these images don't have the faded border. They have just a hard edge. I would try it on one, see how you like it. If it is something you can live with, I would strongly recommend living with it, because to save all these images out as semi-transparent pings, not only is it going to be laborsome for you, but the file size of your website is going to be big. Like these images are going to be obnoxious in terms of what the file sizes are. Okay. So something to be aware of. Try it on one. If in the end it's something you can't live without, you got to have that faded edge. Cool. I can walk you through how to make that happen.
That's fine. I could probably square it off. I was just giving a little something, you know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. And if, if this were a print document, it wouldn't even be a thing. But,
Right.
But because of the way that background images work, that causes an issue with these. Okay. So yeah, again, something to at least be aware of. All right. Yeah, the pages are nice and consistent. So I don't know that I really have anything for you to think about on those. Yeah, cool. That's really it, Chaz. Just, again, being aware of the ultralight font here and the faded images, but that's a bridge that we can cross when we start coding. Maybe before we get there, I mean, I love the images of the peanuts are perfect for the levels that you're using, I gotta tell you. But like the Betty with the little Punisher skirt is awesome. Yeah, just try on one of these images. Try it without the faded border before you code. Get an idea of how that looks and feels for you. But otherwise, there's nothing I need you to tweak or change in these. You're definitely ready to move forward.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Bella, yours is up next. Oh, cool. Good to see images in here this week. I love that, like just that really graceful sort of subtle pattern or texture that's present in your header. I know I talked about this last week with the colors, though. I love that. There's such a nice pop on the name of the website with that little like hot highlight of yellow. Do consider going a little bit larger with the body copy here. Whatever pixel size this is, I would probably bump it up by 2 more pixels. Nice footer. Okay, cool. That looks good. Let's see what your subpage looks like. Ooh, this is gorgeous. Yeah, I like the page header. Oh, nice little embellishments too on the images there. It's a small thing, but it's a nice touch. Okay, cool. Yeah, these look fantastic. If you were to follow this similar format on your subpages, I think this will come together rather well for you. I love the pull quotes too. That's something that I think it's ignored a lot on the web. It's a classic print-based technique that, again, it works well here. Nice. Cool. So Bella, you are definitely going to want to work on banging out the rest of your subpages. But again, if you follow the blueprint that you have here, I think it will be pretty straightforward for you. I would be curious. This is just, I'm sort of thinking out loud. I would be curious to see what the type in the socials would look like, maybe in white. I mean, it works in black, don't get me wrong, but there is an absence of really heavy black within your site. So that kind of comes off as an outlier. I mean, something you can consider. We know that this dark blue works out really well for the Vincent's Voyage header. Maybe this becomes that dark blue as well, or you can try white. That'd be about the only thing I would sort of question. Otherwise, the subpage looks really good here. Then just consider on your home page increasing the size of that body copy. All right, we're getting there. Let's see, Kathy, yours is next. Let me download these. Kathy, I know I emailed you earlier and I mentioned I would talk to you about the page headers. That was the only thing I really saw that I would tweak, and I do have a strong suggestion for you as to how, in terms of how to tweak that. But I would love for everybody to see these. These were really nicely developed. Let's see. Let me actually try and open this up in preview rather than through the browser. All right, let's see. Okay, homepage was looking really good last class. I know we talked about a couple small things to tweak on it, but this is really solid. Again, I love the alternating colors that are being used in the background to segment off the different areas, and just again, it creates a really, really strong hierarchy here. So hierarchy is the same, I guess that's the same reason that I'm going to recommend that the page headers are tweaked. On all of these pages, I adore these pages. I think you've got really strong typographical hierarchy, but I do feel like the page header is compromised in this area because it's competing directly with the name of the website and the logo. I feel like on all of these pages, if we just simply dropped the content down and put these text headers right here, I feel like it would give you a very, very strong anchor to begin each and every one of those pages. And it could probably be the exact same font, same color, same italicized, styling there. Once you try that, if it feels a little too empty though, if it feels like there's the text header and there's just this extra space here, do consider increasing the size. But I actually think it will work out just fine, even with that extra little space there on the right. But size will be the your best friend if it needs to be bumped up. That's the only thing I think that you need to consider tweaking on this. I feel like everything is nice and consistent, clean, professional. Again, other than those text headers, very, very strong visual hierarchy from the use of color and type. Yes. Yeah, that is it. So thank you, Kathy, for sending that over.
Yeah, so just put it on the one side though, not across the whole.
I would do it probably. I would start with it on the side. I mean, ultimately, that's my hunch. If you need to increase the size of it, cool. But yeah, I don't think we want it large enough that it fills the whole area. Although you can try that. I mean, once you bump this stuff down, it can't hurt to try. For myself as a designer, anytime I ask myself a question, I have to see it. I have to try it. So now that you've said that, like, even though my instinct is it doesn't need to be that big, I would try it, see what happens.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That went pretty fast, which I suspected it would. Let me take one more look here at the Google Drive, and I think let's do a live demo. Even though I already have the recorded one, let's talk about some of the things in real time, and I'll open things up to questions for you guys. I'm not going to repeat the full 47 minutes that I recorded last night because it's already done, but this will allow me to talk a little bit more slowly and answer questions in real time. I want to just introduce the way that that Flexbox is used. Okay. So let's see here. Maria, you got a question?
Oh, sorry. It switched the name. It's Jalen. I think I uploaded it in the same one as last week. I didn't see the design revisions.
Oh, okay, cool. Let me give that a look real quick. Thanks for making me aware of that. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Cool. Okay. All right, this was looking awesome last class. And it still looks fantastic here right now. Let's take a look at how these subpages were handled. It's cool. So this is actually very much an orthodox way to do forms with a dark background, but I think it looks really sharp. The one thing you will need to add to the form that you have here is a submit button. Okay, so that data could actually be submitted. But that looks good. I have a hard time remembering if I've ever seen a form with a dark background, but boy, with the white type, that really pops nicely. All right, cool. I'm going to kind of flip through this. Oh, cool. So you did go with different color backgrounds in these. It looks wonderful. Wow, cool. You know, there's a color, even though there are different colors, there's a nice consistent color harmony that's happening here. I do think you can pull that off. Gentlemen, I've only got one suggestion for you. It's incredibly minor, other than that button. I would left align these paragraphs so that we don't have an uneven rag line for this type against the even edge of the image. Okay? So do consider that. Again, don't worry about tweaking that here. We can do it in the code. Maybe going with white type on here, just because the yellow appears to be a little bit of an outlier. Or the alternate would be use that yellow for type in one other place, just so it's not the only page that has yellow type. Very, very nicely done. If you work out any logo concepts and you'd like some feedback on those, you know, please feel free. Although it could be something as simple as just maybe a couple of interlocking S's or something like that. Yeah, very nice.
Thank you.
Okay. Cool. So a couple of things. Let's talk real quick about the next portion of our assignment. And then I will take you guys into Visual Studio Code and we'll do some coding. So one thing I am going to modify, this is literally something that a decision that I made right after my morning class. This due date right here is going to change. Next Wednesday, let give you some, I guess, background. This is my first fall semester teaching at Elgin Community College. A lot of the schools I've taught at have the Wednesday before Thanksgiving off. That is not the case at Elgin Community College. Classes after 5 o'clock are closed, but I stopped by the dean's office today and asked if we could, like for my morning class, if I could conduct that by Zoom, or if this class had to happen. I was notified with that we are definitely having class. Okay, this due date that I came up with was under the assumption that there would not be class before the day before Thanksgiving. So I am going to modify this. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. This portion of the project is going to be due on the 23rd. This is actually a good thing because I have to be honest with you guys. I was looking at our last few weeks and going, holy cow, they have a lot to do in their last few weeks. This will open up things so that things are a little bit more comfortable over our last few weeks. And I'm not asking you to build like an astronomical amount of stuff all just in 2 weeks. Okay, so I do look at that as a good thing, even though I was part of me was definitely hoping that I would be told that we didn't have to have class next week. But so anyway, that's that. The date has been changed there, just in case you looked at that before and you're like, oh, I've got 2 weeks on this. That is actually due next week. All right, with that being said, what are you working on for next week? The objective for next week, and this is also in the long assignment sheet, but I summarized it here as well. But you're going to create the HTML and CSS grid for your project's homepage and subpages. This is something very similar to what we did on the very first project. You remember how we talked about coding just the containers, and your website looked really basic. It was just a series of colored boxes. That was not a very long web page because you don't put anything in it at this point other than just labeling the different containers. It literally is what you guys did on the first project as well. The only difference is we're going to be making multi-column layouts versus on the first one, we dealt with just single column. So you're going to author the wireframes for your final project website in HTML and CSS. That's going to happen inside your your project 2 folder. Just like on project 1, you're just going to be using background colors and a basic labeling of the divs and containers to work out any coding issues. This is the YouTube video that I posted last night. Again, it's quite long. It's about 47 minutes. You're going to want to watch this. Please, please, please watch this. It's going to walk you through how to make the various layouts. Okay. I will talk though live right now about some of the things that you want to consider when it comes to working with Flexbox. Okay, so I actually still have the site open that I made last night when I was making that video, but I am just going to take a moment and I'll wipe out all of this code and build something from scratch for you guys. All right, let me save those real quick. And I'm going to open this up in a browser window so I can call to it. Before I dig into this, I'm going to also give you guys the opportunity to ask, do you have any questions at this point in terms of what I'm looking for from you guys for next week? No. Okay, cool. I will, I'll take questions again at the end of this demo as well. What we're going to do here is, rather than me coding out an entire site, because you guys know how to create a wrapper and nav and a header and a content area and footer. That's all stuff we know how to do at this point. And I do, by the end of my demo that I recorded for you, I actually do code out an entire page. But for the time that we have here right now, I want to focus just primarily on the new stuff, that being Flexbox. So I have my starter file open. I did a save as on it. I named it test, and I have already linked it with this line of code here on line 7 to my style sheet. So let's just do a couple of things with this. Let's start off as if I were maybe making a real site and make a div, and we're going to call it wrapper, as we do. Okay. Next, I'm going to show you guys an example of using Flexbox. So when we are working in Flexbox, I guess first of all, let me show you like an example of what I'm going to do. Let me paint a picture here for you. We'll use this. We'll make this. I mean, this is up. We'll just use this. So if I were designing a multi-column layout, there are 2 ways we could do this. We could make 2 long columns. That's quick and that's easy, but it's maybe not the best way of doing it, because all of this stuff is aligned beautifully, and I like that. It's a nice, tight, professional grid. Problem is, there's no guarantee that this paragraph of type is going to be the exact same height as this one. You can even see here, they are not the same height. So if they were completely separate single columns, there would be no way to align everything that came after this shorter paragraph. All this stuff would be kicked up. So rather than just doing 2 straight columns, it would be better for us to design something like this in rows that have columns. So I'm just going to draw on this real quick to kind of explain this. Bear with me for a brief moment while I set up my, let's set this to no fill. Okay, whatever, we'll do it like this. So I'm just making an invisible box with a stroke on it. Okay, so rather, we are going to design this in, we're going to design this as a row, and in the row, it is going to have individual divs like this. I'm just drawing these as outlines to kind of represent what we're going to build. So we're going to build something like this. We'll have a div, and in the div, will be 2 more divs that we can then align like so. Okay. And ultimately what's going to happen here, I'm going to just merge these real quick. We'll do the same thing then for, oops, let's see, that did not take, let's see here. Lost something there in translation. Let me back up a few. There we go. There we go. All right. So we'll do something like this, and then ultimately underneath that, we would have another row with columns. And then underneath that, we would have another row with columns for these buttons. My alignment's getting a little bit bigger, but you'll see. We'll build it. Okay. That's the idea, is that we work with rows, and in those rows, we have these columns. Okay. So now that you kind of have a basic idea of what that looks like, let's make it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a div, and this is going to be the parent that's going to hold the children columns. You'll hear me use that term a lot in the video I recorded. A parent just refers to a container that holds other containers. There's nothing special about it per se, other than the fact we're going to use Flexbox on it. But it's just a div, like any other div. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this example container, just for the sake that it is an example. And in it, we're going to go ahead and put a couple more divs. And I'm going to call this one example column. And I'm going to put something in there. You know, if I'm doing like Jacob says the example here, inside of Jacob's, there was an image in that first one. So I'm just going to type image. And we are going to then repeat that. Okay. So what do we have here? We have a wrapper. In a real website, then we would probably have like nav would come next, and maybe like our header would come next, and then a footer would come after that. Again, you guys know how to do all that stuff. But we have a wrapper. In the wrapper, for this example, we have a container, a div, and in that container, we have 2 more containers. So how do we style this? Let's make that happen. Let's begin with our wrapper. So the wrapper is a class, so it starts with a dot. Here's where I can go ahead and define things like the width of my site. Let's maybe make this 960. If we want to center it, we'll go ahead and set our margins to auto. And we'll save that. Now, I want us to look at what this looks like right now before we do anything else. Because I want you to see how this thing looks by default. Okay, by default, we have got a wrapper, which right now you can't see it, doesn't have a border. In fact, here, let's do this so you can see it. I'm going to make all of my divs right now have a border. Let's give it a 1 pixel border. We'll make it black. We'll make them solid. Sorry, my dog is doing funny things here off to the side of the camera. All right, there we go. So the parent div, well, really the wrapper now has a border. The parent div that's holding these other divs has a border, and then the individual divs have a border. Right now, though, they're acting like normal divs do, that they extend to fill the whole width. The wrapper's not. The wrapper has a width that we set in the style to 960, and it's set to center. So as I expand or contract this window, it will always center. But the children divs and the container div, they have no styling there. So let's take care of that next. Let's see. Let's do the example columns real quick. Let's maybe give them a width. Let's maybe make them, I don't know, like 400 pixels wide. And let's see what that looks like now. So we'll head back to the browser, we'll refresh. There we go. Now you're starting to see them in action. So these divs by default, like every div does, they want to stack on top of one another. And this is what you guys did when you made your single column websites. You just relied on divs just stacking right on top of each other, doing their thing, their default thing. If we want to change this, it's very easy to do. Okay. All we have to do is take the container that holds them and set it to flex. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to take this. By default, it relies on this right here, a display of block. We never have to type that for containers because it's already set to that. That is the default. Okay. If we want to modify that though, and we want to use Flexbox, all we have to do, guys, to create columns is set the parent container, set its display to flex. That's it. That one line of code right there creates columns for us, so that this now becomes this. Okay. Now, what else can we do with that? We can continue to use some Flexbox code. For example, let's see here. There's 3 pieces of code that I want to show you, and literally, as I'm transitioning from here and talking about them, they went poof. So let's see. We want to use. Oh, it's called justify content. So there's a few ways we can justify this. One would be by centering the content. All that literally does is just center these things. So let's do something like that. And I'm actually going to show you something you already know how to do that's not Flexbox, but then talk about some additional Flexbox. So let's just say we wanted them to maybe more evenly distribute these columns. Maybe we want some margins on here. What you guys already know how to do would be to go into a column and add like a margin left. In fact, I'm going to actually take this out, and I'm just going to use a margin left. So let's say I use maybe a margin left on there of, I don't know, like 20 pixels. So now we're going to have 20 pixels of space before each of these 2 columns. And there you go. 20 pixels of space, 20 pixels of space. Notice that this is uneven now. We'd have to do some math this way, right? We'd have to say, okay, this is 960. These are 400 each. Let's subtract that. That's 160. And then we'd want to divide that potentially by, 2 or 3, depending on how much space we want to have before or after. It's just more math than probably you need to even be doing. Okay. It can be done this way. It's just sort of an older way of doing it. So I'm not going to recommend that you guys do it with margins like we did in the first project, but rather using that justify content. And instead of doing center, there's 2 others that you can use. You can do this one, which is called space evenly. And what that does is this. Okay. So Flexbox is figuring out for you how much space needs to be before, in the middle, and afterwards to get these to evenly space out inside of your column. Now, when I went back and looked at your wireframes when I did the video demo for last night, this is how almost all of yours were set up when you had columns, is that you had space on the left, right, and in the middle. Okay. A few of you had just space in the middle and your columns were aligned to the left and the right. That can be done also by saying, instead of space evenly, you can do space between. And if you use that option, and we refresh this, notice how it's just the space in between that is figured out for you. And these columns are butted up against the edges here. Okay. So that ultimately is what I want to at least talk to you guys about in terms of using Flexbox. So potentially, if I were coding out the rest of, here, let's see, coding out the rest of this in my wireframe, we can do the same thing for the text, same thing for the buttons. Before I do that, I'm just going to maybe put a little bit of padding inside of these example containers here. Maybe we do, let's do padding of maybe, I don't know, 20 pixels. just so that the content is got a little bit of breathing room. Yeah, there we go. But here, in fact, let me take a look one more time at the concept. So this one looks like, actually, it does look like we have space on the left, middle, and right. So we'll go ahead and we'll jump back over here. We'll change that space between to space evenly. But the rest of this thing gets knocked out really quick. It's just a matter of, for the text columns, copying what we did for the images, pasting it. And for our temporary here, I'm just going to go ahead and type in there text. Yep, I want text area. There you go. And text. On this design, Kyle's design, there was also buttons down here. So for this wireframe, we would want to have one then for buttons. And what that now looks like is this. Okay. And this is ultimately what your wireframe will start to look like. Remember, just like the first project, we're not worrying about putting the actual images in yet, or the actual text, or the actual buttons. We're simply building the grid that we then can use to start to populate. We're going to handle this exactly like the first project. First, we build the wireframe in HTML and CSS. Once we get that set, then we plug in our images and our text or buttons, those types of things. And then the final week of this, I will show you guys how to add your forms. And actually, well, I'll talk about how to actually code a button. I know we haven't actually coded a button yet at this point. So just typing the word button is fine. But what the actual wireframe would look like, and we're pretty close. Really, we just got maybe nav and a header and a footer to do, and we've got enough time. I'll go ahead and I'll just do that real quick so you can see what I'm expecting. Again, lots of examples of this in the video, and I cannot stress enough. Please do watch the video. But we have nav. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and type navigation goes here. After that, there was a header. And under all that, there was a footer. All right, so what does that look like then in the browser? It looks like that. Now, those areas have not been styled yet, right? So of course, that's what they look like. But again, we can potentially start to do that. One of the things I show you guys how to do in the video that I made is I show you how to do a logo with navigation that sits next to it. We definitely have enough time where I could do that again here, just in case that inspires any questions. It also uses Flexbox. But let's talk about it real quick. So in the navigation, Kyle has on his a logo, and then he's got his links. So I'm going to go ahead in here and make a div. I'm going to give it a class. I'm going to call it logo. And I'm just going to type in there logo. Then he's got some navigation. The navigation, I'm going to go ahead and put in an unordered list. And you will see why here in just a moment. So I'm going to do a list item. I'm not going to actually type his actual links. Rather, I'm just going to go ahead and type like link. You could, obviously for your individual ones, if you have a similar type of nav, you can do that. Okay. Now, again, what does this look like without any styling? Let's give it a look. This is a block item, as are the links. So by default, they're going to stack on top of one another like this. So let's get these things under control and acting the way that we want them to act. So they are all sitting inside of the navigation being the parent container of them. So based on what we know so far, we can go ahead and set up our nav to display. Try that again. Display as flex. That's how we implement Flexbox, that line of code right there. We can also set up our logo at this point. Now logo is a class, so it starts with a dot. We can give it a height and a width. So let's give it a width. Let's not give it a height. We're not giving any of these things heights at this point. But maybe we've got a width of, I don't know, like 200 pixels. Let's give this a look and see how she is handling. The logo now should be 200 pixels. And you will notice that the links are displaying next to it, but the links themselves are not displaying horizontally. So let's talk about how we would make that happen. When you're dealing with a list like this, it's actually very easy to set up the links to do that. So my links are inside of an unordered list as list items. So if we call out to these list items in a style sheet, we can get them to display horizontally. Now there's been an old way to do this that's still very relevant. We don't use Flexbox for the individual list items. We would use a display for any list. You can set a display to inline, and that will get the elements to line up horizontally. So let's see what that looks like real quick. There we go. And we can adjust the spacing in between them if we want to, by setting those list items up to have a margin left. So, you know, I don't know, 50 pixels, let's say for now. Just throwing numbers out there. There we go. We can even, if we want, we can get the logo to kind of come off the edge a little bit as well, giving it a margin left. Let's give that one more look. There we go. And again, we can, we can add more or less space in those links. That's all easy enough to do. We could even add inside of our navigation if we want this stuff to kind of come down further inside. So remember, when you're dealing with getting an object to move when it's inside of a container, we can do that with positioning the margin left. But if I want to affect all of these things and get them to respond, I can add a padding to the nav. So if I want all of this stuff to go down like 50 pixels, I can go in there to my nav and add a padding on the top and maybe, knock those down, I don't know, 20 pixels. There we go. Cool. I haven't styled the header yet. I haven't styled the footer, but you're getting an idea of like what this looks like ultimately. For next week, you wouldn't have to style your header or your footer. We're not giving them heights. The heights, again, will be based on the stuff. So your grids for next week are all going to look fairly short and condensed like this. Again, remember the first project. Your pages were very, very short when they didn't have any content in them. This is what they will look like. This is what you'll be turning into me next week in terms of these things. We're only worried about the layout. We are not worried about the design. A quick reminder, something that comes to mind. When we did our first project, a lot of you guys ended up using padding or margins on the bottom or the right. So hear me out on this. We really, by and large, we really never should be using a padding or margin on the right. We are always concerned with pushing things over from the left or pushing things down from the top. Okay. So for example, if I wanted more room on my header, so it's not here, I would not put a padding or margin bottom on the nav. I would go to the header and I would add I would do a margin top to get it to come down. So whatever, we'll do 50 pixels in there. There we go. So now it's counting down 50 pixels from the bottom of the nav. You know, same thing if I wanted some extra room here. I could go to, yep, I don't want to illustrate. I would go to the example containers and I would maybe give those a margin top to get those all to maybe count down. Maybe we'll throw 10 pixels of margin top on those. There we go. That starts to add 10 pixels of space at the top of all of those. So that ultimately is some small tweaks we can make, but you're really not worried about the heights of these things. Don't really even worry too much about dialing the padding of the margins for next week. That's all stuff that we can figure out when we start plugging in the actual content. This would be an example of what one of those wireframes will look like. You're going to be building wireframes for your homepage and all 5 of the subpages. For those of you who have subpages that all are basically the same, you don't have to like completely like code those all from scratch. If I had another subpage that looked just like this, all I have to do is just do a save as, you know, like file save as. Call this whatever. I'm on the style sheet. I want to do that, not on the style, but the HTML. So I would do a save as, and maybe this becomes my travel page or my, you know, whatever. You guys have a number of different pages that were all very similar. So maybe this is, I don't know, like the experience page or whatever you want to call it, but it's just simply saving it as. And that just generated a whole new page, but with the exact same stuff. Okay. So lean on that. Don't completely recode everything from scratch if you don't need to. Okay. It's pretty straightforward. I know it seems daunting to have to create the wireframes for 6 pages, but most of what you guys are doing is the same. Now, there are lots of variations to this. All I did here in this example was code out a 2-column layout with evenly spaced columns. That video walks you guys through all the variations that I saw in the folder that you guys submitted with your wireframes. So please, 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 please watch that video. It will absolutely walk you guys through, you know, how to create the specifics within your sites. Okay. So that kind of demystifies it a little bit. By the time you've gotten through that video, though, I think you'll feel very confident in building out all of the variations. I mentioned this in the beginning, but it's worth repeating. I worked fast in that video to try and keep it under an hour. So don't be afraid as you're watching it to pause. So you can actually make sense of things, because I'm moving fast, jumping back and forth between browser windows and you know, just making it happen. I don't know, any questions on what we just talked about there?
When we put the website, is it fine we put index? It doesn't interfere with the last project we did?
So yeah, good question. So your website's not going to go in the project 1 folder. It's going to go in your project 2 folder. Okay. So yeah. In your folder, in your projects folder, you should have a folder you set up called project 2 with your last name. Those files will go in here. So no, it won't interfere at all with project 1, because project 1 is where your old files were.
Okay, I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's a good question. And I'm glad you asked that, because we want to make sure that we are setting up a project 2 folder and not saving those things to the old one, because yeah, they would override it then, right? Because your homepage for project 2 should be called index. Okay. Your sub pages can be called whatever you'd like. You know, if you've got an about us page, call it about. If you've got a contact page, call it contact. If you have a travel page, call it travel. Call them simple things, you know. No spaces in file names. So when you are naming them, do not, you know, don't have an HTML file, for example, that's called like, I don't know, like about space us. We can't have spaces in our file names. That causes issues when we start making links and whatnot. Okay. But otherwise, name them what you want. That's okay. Yeah,
my homepage is only a single column.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to change that to a double column?
No, but I would definitely like you, Jacob, to have at least your subpages should contain multiple columns. That's definitely a requirement on this project. I don't mind if some of the pages have single columns, but I definitely want you to demonstrate that you can do multiple columns within this.
Yeah, I'm planning for most of the subpages to be double column, but
Cool. Yeah, then that's fine. I'm actually okay with that.
okay, thanks.
Mhm. Okay. Cool. So we do meet next Wednesday online. I will likely not be doing any kind of a long demo. We're not doing a critique next week because it's not what you're turning in is not a designed based thing, you know. But I will certainly reserve some time for discussing the next part of the project moving forward. Yeah, we may not necessarily meet the entire time. I do understand it's the day before Thanksgiving and you guys might have travel or you may have things going on. So I will try and not keep us for the entire class. Okay. All right, cool. Well, guys, that's it.
I have one other question as far as turn in. I think you'll have to add a Google Docs for us to submit that.
Yes, actually, thanks, Kathy. I realized that earlier that we do have one for this week's assignment, but there's not one for week 5. So just in case you get a jump start on that, guys, I will make that part 6 folder right now for you guys. This would be, again, you're just zipping up, the entire, you're zipping up the entire folder, just kind of like you did with project 1, just zip up your entire class root folder and go from there in terms of uploading it. That will, and that's fine if it includes the project 1 folder, no worries, it's not a problem. Don't worry about taking that out. Okay. Cool.
So we're technically just zipping project 2.
Well, I mean, to
not
make
the
it,
whole, your whole CDN219 folder.
in general, what I've done in the past is just always have my class just always zip the whole folder and submit it. But if you feel comfortable enough understanding that all I really need is the project 2 folder, that's really all you need to zip to submit to me.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Any other questions? No? All right, cool. As always, if you need anything from me between now and next Wednesday, shoot me an email. If you have coding questions, do make sure that you zip your folder. And again, watch the video. If you ask me a question that's in that video, I'm going to send you an email response that says you didn't watch the video. Okay, so watch that. Get it on your calendar at some point in the next few days before you code out your wireframes to spend 40 minutes. It's actually 47 minutes, but watch that video. Okay. The answers to 90% of the questions that you will have this week are in there. Okay. So that's it, guys. Have a fantastic weekend and awesome work on getting those subpages all designed out. I know that does take some time and I certainly appreciate that. So be productive this weekend and keep in touch if you need anything.
Great. Have a good one.
Yep.
Thank
Guys,
you.
Hey, Peter,
Bye.
can I talk to you after class?
Sure. Yeah, I'm here. Cool. Nick, was that you that wanted to talk with me?
Yeah, it was.
Cool.
All right. I just wanted to say I'm so sorry again for being late today. I was up like really late last night working on some homework, including like this one, and so I didn't get to bed till like 4 in the morning because I was just rushing through so much stuff. And then so I slept through some of the Zoom calls, so I was able to get here by like 2.
Okay.
But
Yeah, no worries, Nick. I recorded like I did last week. I did still look at your site and made some comments for you. They're very minor. You did a nice job of making those updates. I believe yours was towards the beginning of the recording that I'm going to post. So once that's in there, It'll be in the first few here. Let me look at the Google Drive. I can give you an idea of exactly when I went through that because I went in order of how they were. And I feel like yours was one of the first few. Yeah, yours was the third one. So within like the first 10, 15 minutes of our recording today, you'll see the feedback that I left for you.
Okay.
No worries. I get it. Life gets in the way. Fortunately, this class is recorded, so you can watch it anytime. So no worries. If you have any questions on the feedback that I gave you, reach out to me. Okay.
Just let you know. Okay. So it was just some feedback and stuff, and then
Yeah,
someone,
very minor,
like,
very minor. Yep. So otherwise you caught the majority of the rest of the feedback that I gave. But again, no worries. I understand life gets in the way sometimes, but thanks for at least jumping on and talking with me.
yeah, no worries. And again, I'm sorry about that. And
No
then
worries, Nick. Have a good
so
weekend
just,
and get some rest.
yeah, you too.
All right. Bye-bye.